This is On the Road with the Outdoor Club of Port Jervis. I'm Kevin Siegel, the host today, and joining me to my left-hand side, your right, is David Krantz, the co-owner of the Fox in Hare. David, how's it going today, man?
Going well. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. I understand, you are a big part of this Port Jervis community now, and of course, being a co-owner here of a business in Port Jervis, it's a great thing to see, downtown Front Street and all the businesses popping up here and everyone really getting involved in this town, and really just it's just booming here in Port Jervis. So I love to see that. So I'm glad you were able to make some time out of your busy schedule down there at the bar and restaurant, of course. So thank you so much.
No, it looks completely different than when we started 3 years ago.
I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure. And you are a part of that. We'll get to that in a little bit. But of course, we're going to start off today by, just kind of going over your background a little bit here, because you were actually from New York City. You were living in Queens for a while, right?
That's correct.
You were actually in the film industry too. Which was really cool as well. And, I'm sure you love what you did down there. You were, you were part of that city for quite some time. But was there just like something that kind of clicked that said, you know what, this is great and everything, but I have other passions that I kind of want to pursue in my next chapter?
Part of it, I think, was I grew up in South Carolina, actually, and always was one of those kids that spent time along the river in the woods, any extra time outdoors. And it's not that doesn't exist in New York City, but it doesn't exist on a scale
not like that.
Not like that. And it was I was actually shooting a pilot up in Binghamton, and on our way up there, we came through Port Jervis. Actually, there were a few stops along the way, and it was the first time where I thought I'd done a decade in the city between Brooklyn and Queens, and it was the first time where I thought it might be time for me to get back to this. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so it kind of was like you stumbled upon it, right?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. It wasn't even something I was looking for. I think that it couldn't be more accurate. I stumbled on it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm glad you did, because now you're here. Going into the town, stumbling upon this town and seeing what it was back then, then you go back to the city for a little bit too. In that time, what made you choose Port Jervis after coming here and stumbling upon it like you did? Was there just something in your head that said, you know what, I really just want to go there and try something new? Was there something in your mind that was telling you that?
I think they always say that for real estate developers, the real estate developers just follow artists around, because artists always find the next great real estate.
Sure.
And I think there's just between the background in urban planning of loving the infrastructure here, the proximity of the river, I continue to love the fact that the train's right there, and New York City is in your backyard, despite how far it seems.
Still a train ride away.
It's a train ride away, and the architecture was and remains gorgeous. I think everyone always says potential, and the town still has a lot of potential.
Growing constantly,
and it's all there. And then the addition to a lot of what Mike's done with the outdoor club and the natural assets, and that's just icing on the cake now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you think about all the strides this town has made already, and this just those few years you've been up here, it's just really amazing to see Port Jervis really come alive in the last couple of years. And you're a big part of that, because, as I mentioned at the beginning, you're co-owner of the Fox and Hare here in town, right on Front Street, of course. And, where did that idea just kind of come from? We'll touch a little bit on that. Where did that kind of spark from?
Yeah, that for the longest time in the city, myself and the other owner, we actually met. That was before I even had the production company. We both bartended, and almost everyone at some point bartends or serves
and you're in this city. Yeah.
So, and we never left. We always had a dream of owning a bar, not necessarily a brewery.
Right.
And
this stems way back then.
Way back. And we had a little bit of stayed in touch. The two of us actually briefly lived together in Astoria, but he really got super passionate about brewing, and we never lost that energy of opening a bar, and really the two collided, and just for things to be more organic, him and his wife came up here to visit myself and my girlfriend, and they fell in love with the town the same way we did. And again, it wasn't an immediate thing, but it happened way faster than we anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, and then you see Port Jervis, you move to Port Jervis, then right?
Yep.
You get a place here as well, and then what happens is you say, you know what, that idea is going to come to fruition. We're going to open up the Fox and Hare, right?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what happened, and the project took a lot longer than we anyone wanted, but the idea and kind of the meeting with the mayor and the change of ownership and the whole process of getting funding together happened incredibly fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's a great idea. And obviously, business is booming, which we love to see here in town. Again, talking to David Krantz, co-owner of Fox and Hare. But we have more to talk about here just in town alone because, you know, you've been a part of this town now for a few years, like we said before. And the surrounding area, you know, thanks you for coming up here and being a part of this town too. But you've seen what this area is about now. You've seen what the surrounding areas have to offer. So like, you know, just this area alone, after being here now for a few years, being a business owner in town as well, what about this area really speaks to you personally?
Well, I love having people come visit that I haven't seen in a while that come to see things, and it's not. You can live in a city and people probably can assume why you moved to that city.
Yeah.
It could be a job. It could be whatever the city has to offer. You know, I think a lot of my friends scratch their head, you know, why Port Jervis? They might not even know what Port Jervis is. And I love bringing them up here because I can drive them 10 miles in any direction and just show them something spectacular. And a lot of it's, I think, the natural assets and the geography. The Bashakil, if you've ever spent time out there, is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
You know, the drive down to the water gap from here is, I love it. It never gets old. And you get 4 beautiful seasons up here. And it again, it wasn't that hard a decision for me. I think what speaks to me is the landscape and a little bit slower way of life. You get out of the city and you feel that, but I like to walk. I walk to work. I chose to live still slightly urban, yet kind of in the outdoors.
Right. And you can get that here.
You can get it here. And I love showing my friends that just behind the Lutheran church, I can walk 2 blocks and be at the foot of the trails, and I can tie right into 42 miles of that network. So I love it.
That's the beauty of being in a town like this as well. Small town, but, you know, a lot of outdoor opportunities as well right around town here, surrounding areas too. Yeah, Matamoros, you got the, you know, other surrounding towns here. You got Cut a Backfill. You got, I mean, there's so many different, you know, offerings here just around the tri-state area. And this is exactly why you picked this town, like you said. And, you know, those other opportunities that we were talking about, some of those were actually the Riverside Park and downtown Front Street alone. And, you know, I've seen a couple of maps here and your ideas as well. You know, we have them here that we were looking at before we got on air today, you know, so those were actually some of those dreams and aspirations you were talking about with the opportunities that you were granted here by moving here, right?
Absolutely. And I think there's a slightly selfish factor to that where you're in a city of 8 million people and that drop of a water in a lake and move somewhere like here, and your influence and the things you do, you can see a return on those things. And it is fulfilling, I guess. So in some ways it is selfish. In some ways it's selfless because, you know, and I'll speak on behalf of my business partner too. He's just as kind of energized as I am, but it's just, there is so much more that can be done and that I think is happening and a lot of energy. So it's a lot of these people that are volunteering their time and putting energy into their vision that we're going to start to see just continue to grow the town over the next few years.
Well, you know, moving to a place like this, you can really put those visions, you know, into reality. And that's the best part about it. From the Fox and Hare to Riverside Park to downtown Front Street, which we know is growing every single month. It seems like construction here in town. You were working with the mayor on your businesses, and now these ideas for Riverside Park and downtown Front Street. I mean, these are things that could just make a town and, you know, really make the community as well really come together. And, you know, it just really showed from all the work you guys put into it. So
no, you nailed it. And I think the term you're kind of hinting on is being actualized. And I think what Mike Ward has done with the Outdoor Club and just as small of program and activity as the pump track is, that happened in a very short amount of time. And
Yeah.
even I was a little skeptical of the amount of use it would get. And you can't go by there without seeing it just being used. It gives a positive thing for kids to do and adults to do too.
That's exactly right. And you see that from the trail systems to the parks, it takes a real team effort too, to really expand on those ideas. And it really has, like you're saying, from the trail systems, right? From Elks Brock's Park to the watershed trails. I mean, just everything has expanded, substantially over the last couple of years. And from the pump track to Riverside Park to the watershed trails, it's all been growing. And of course, people like Mike Ward and, people from the community in the town of Port Jervis, obviously it takes a whole team and it really shows.
No, absolutely. And I think that the next iteration of all this is giving people more. And I think what people really want is to be able to park their car in Port Jervis and be overwhelmed with the amount of things they can do, whether it's free or whether things cost money.
Yeah.
And, I think the more programmed activity, I think that is the next iteration.
Well, that's the thing. People respond to activity, right? You're a business owner here in town, right? You and your partner have actually seen what is going on here in the last few years, what people respond to, and activity is definitely something Port Jervis does respond to. We know that. So this is driving you to come up with some new ideas too, and just touch on what a couple of new ideas you are having. I know one of them is, possibly a disc golf course, right?
Yeah, and you mentioned that, and not everyone knows what disc golf is. Some people do. It's becoming more and more popular. It's actually, I was looking before I walked down here, and it's kind of hitting the popularity of traditional golf in the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Right.
And you're seeing the growth of something like 400 or 500 new courses a year. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
And historically, those have always been public and free, and some people are privatizing some of the higher end ones, but it seems to be a trend that's not going away anytime.
Well, let's go there a little bit, because me personally, I'm a huge traditional golfer. I played in college a little bit as well. Not a PGA pro, but you know what? It's fine. It's still a hobby of mine. But I am actually really interested in disc golf alone, because I've seen courses. I've played once or twice just recreationally on some courses. I actually went to school down in South Carolina for a little bit. So I know what disc golf is a little bit, but there's still more to know. For those who don't know much about disc golf, what is the real difference or differences between traditional golf and disc golf now?
Yeah, the biggest difference really, and it's very similar in play. It's very similar in concept. You replace a golf ball with a frisbee, a disc, and you replace a club with your arm.
Right.
But the beauty in it is it takes up significantly less resources and land. Golf courses, as you know, are the maintenance involved is
unbelievable.
Insane.
Yes.
And that's what makes a great golf course.
Right.
It is if it's very well maintained.
That's right.
And
that's right.
It's not that today you do see a lot of well-groomed disc golf courses that almost look like traditional, like beautiful, right. Like crazy dramatic,
beautiful drop. Bermuda grass, right?
But that's absolutely not required, and that makes it very approachable for townships and cities to get in. Really, it's the access to land and a little bit of vision and quite a bit of volunteer work, and really should give a shout out to a resident named Richard Clapp, who's really been pushing a lot of the disc golf idea, has done insanely more research to making sure we can bring it to fruition, seeing what the costs are associated and what that'll entail. So I do want to give some credit out there.
Oh, absolutely. Like the ideas are there, and I know like what you wish you could just do everything yourself, but that's just not how life is. People have to come together and get things done. And so this is great that a lot of people are really on board with this idea. Again, something else to bring to the table to this town to get the community, really just involved with each other. And this is one of those ideas, I think, again, that could really do it. And we're talking about disc golf right here. I'm, of course, with David Krantz to my left, your right, and he is the co-owner of the Fox in Hare. But we're talking about disc golf here in Port Jervis and the surrounding areas. So, people who play traditional golf may not be the best golfers at traditional golf, but in disc golf, it's a totally different motion. You use disc, like you're saying. Is there, you could be better at disc golf than you were ever at traditional golf, right? Which is crazy to think about.
That makes that I fit that mold, and I'm not that good at disc golf. But
right.
The root of it, and I think one thing that people will learn is it is very approachable. It's easy to get frustrating if you're not great at golf. The fact you made it to a collegiate level is
barely.
But this is just something to go out. It can be casual and social.
Right.
And there's extremes. You can, what I would love to see in town is different leagues, league play, and have teams from various businesses, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And the cool thing you do see is the kind of higher competitions where it's really fun to watch people play. Some of these holes are really extravagant, beautiful. There are 3 holes up on this plot of land on the northern end of the park that would make phenomenal disc golf holes, and you know it when you're on that tee box.
Yeah.
And, some of the things we've talked about is doing a little pitch and putt 9-hole course down at Riverside, which any kid could go out and play, or really groups of people can go play really quick. Maybe you get off work and just come down. And that's another wonderful thing about the sport. Golf is the same way. You can play by yourself or you can play with
other people.
And at the root of it, you're outside enjoying things. So, and the more intense course was kind of envisioned for up in the watershed. And there's quite a few fairways that are already existing that would
natural fairways. Yeah, right. Like you said, a great traditional golf course comes with a lot of maintenance. Yep. This is already, mostly done.
That's right. And that's not to say you wouldn't still need volunteers, but the amazing thing about the early conversations of this, there are a lot of people out there, and it's not just the ones that need all the credit that have done all the biking trails. And those guys, Adam and Tyler and DJ and Tom and all those guys, they already said they'd be more than willing to volunteer time.
Sure.
But there's other people out there, and I think what we don't want for Port Jervis is to get behind, because I should have brought up Middletown has a 9-hole course. Warwick has 2 18-hole courses and a 9-hole course. Right. So we do want to make sure, and that's a good thing. It's kind of like breweries. When people go to breweries, they usually go to more than one when they're in the area. So we want to make sure we're part of that. But the great thing is, west of that Middletown exit, there's really a good 45-mile radius where there is not an opportunity for that. So we would love to be put on the map for that.
Well, definitely. It sounds like an amazing idea, a great idea for this community, this town alone in Port Jervis. So I guess I'll kind of finish it off with what's the next step involved here?
Yeah, I think there's probably a call to arms of when things are a bit more formalized. Certainly budget and maintenance are always an issue. And there's I think the city's certainly warm to the idea. There's always concerns with safety and maintenance and costs. So those are things we're going to want to figure out. And I think tying it into some of the other bigger plans that we looked at before this meeting is how can that tie into the future plans of Riverside Park?
Right.
How does that tie into the narrative of what's going on up on the mountain? And I think that's it. I think the more that the watershed and Elks Rocks can feel like an adventure center almost, with a lot of programmed activity for people of different demographics, different ages, and different thrills, because only so many people are willing to get on a mountain bike and in fear of breaking their arm or whatever. So there are plenty of other outdoor activities that can be done.
That's right.
Very low risk for everyone. So I think that's the future. And disc golf is one of probably a dozen of those activities.
Yeah,
so, yep.
It absolutely is. And, I hope the next step gets polished off and we can get out there and play some disc golf ourselves, man. So it sounds like an awesome idea. I cannot wait for this to become part of our town, and hopefully everything goes smoothly. And, best of luck with it, man. Hopefully everything comes to fruition pretty quickly, because I'm excited to get out there. I really am.
We'll have to do a follow-up for sure.
That sounds good. We could do it on the course podcast if you want sometime. I'm talking to David Krantz here, of course, co-owner of the Fox and Hare in Port Jervis. Get on out there and see David here around town, possibly on the disc golf course. This is another edition of On the Road with the Outdoor Club of Port Jervis. I'm Kevin Siegel. Thanks for joining.